Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Sticky Note Marketing Show. I am thrilled today to introduce you to my guest expert, Julie Wieler. Julie is going to help us today uncover why exactly so many businesses struggle to connect with their customers and how hidden gaps in audience understanding can quietly sabotage growth. So this is going to be a seriously interesting conversation, eye-opening conversation that is going to, I promise you this, change the way you think about your marketing, your offers, and your next stage of growth. So I am your host, Mary Czarnecki. Thank you so much, Julie, for being here on the show. Happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Mary. I'm excited to be here.
Now, I know some of the folks here listening to this, watching us, listening to our episode, wherever they are in the world, might know you as the founder of WMC Co and co-founder of Quick Win Labs, as well as Coach Core. But for those that don't know all of the magic that you do in your business with you and your team, would you just give us a little bit of an overview of who you work with and how you help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So, really, what we do is we just got really tired of seeing brands and coaches or consultants waste a lot of time, energy, and money in campaigns or efforts in their marketing that weren't working. And so, what we did is we actually drilled into what is it that made successful campaigns successful, and what is it that made non-successful campaigns not miss the mark. And we curated a process that actually helps us. We reverse engineer a little bit of the marketing funnels. I learned part of it from a really great company that taught me so much. We brought a little bit of things like StoryBrand. I'm a StoryBrand guide, and Business Made Simple coach brought it all together so that it was a very streamlined, easy to understand pathway to understanding how your audience needs you to be positioned so that you can be the guide in their story and use your products or services as the solution to their problem. We're effectively spending our money far more efficiently. We are connecting with our audience on a deeper level, and we are seeing results in real time.
I love that. And especially that last part that you were talking about, the results in real time, because I show my age a little bit. Back when I started 25 years ago in marketing, we didn't have the ability with the technology we have now to actually see these results so quickly, which is, I think, one of the most exciting things about what I know you do that I want us to dig into today. One question I have for you just at the beginning, because you work with a lot of different types of businesses, different sizes of businesses, but I know that there's a commonality, right, that you see in a lot of the clients that you work with. And is there, when it comes to really looking at the effectiveness of our messaging, like you're saying, the secret sauce that you're able to bring, is there a test that business owners, that marketers are not doing that they really should be, that they're overlooking?
Yeah. So one of the biggest commonalities that we see, whether it's a brand new startup all the way to we've worked and done this with billion-dollar brands, one of the common biggest mistakes people make is they don't actually know where they're entering into the buyer journey, and they don't know exactly what problem they are solving with their product or service. And so as marketers, we often hear, "Oh, I can serve everybody." And you kind of get that little eye twitch, which, bless everybody. But it's one of those things where when you're trying to market to everybody, you're serving nobody. And so understanding that piece of the client journey is so critical. And I just use an example with a student or a coaching client today of if you're talking to somebody who has a very urgent, immediate problem, but you're speaking to them about something that's going to happen months down the road, they're not connecting to you. They need to know that you have the empathy and the authority and the competency to help them solve the problem that's in front of them right at this moment. And so what we can do is we test in real time on user platforms of what is the language they're using, what is the pain point that they're trying to solve in this moment, and really dialing that in. And when you can connect on that level, that is when we really start to see the chips fall into place. And it's a mistake most brands don't even realize that they're making. They just think they're in a different part of the customer journey, and they haven't validated where they're entering into the market.
And it's such an interesting thing too, because if you were sitting across from someone, and I know this some can happen in sales conversations, right, where you're actually sharing your message, right, sharing your message to someone, you would see the eyes glaze over, like you'd see their body language, you'd see someone physically lean back. It's a little harder when you're dealing with online messaging, right? When you're testing funnel messaging or marketing messaging, we have to rely on the digital body language. So when you're looking for that, what do you do to help people start to get at the root of when it might not be matching, when they're either maybe not messaging to the right part of the journey that they're entering, or when they're just not getting that connection they want with their customers?
Yeah, so the first thing we look for is the metrics in terms of like conversion rates, things like that inside of a funnel, because there's little key markers that kind of tell us something's off. And that can be from something as simple if it's a paid advertisement, your link click-through rate. And then your link click-through rate should ideally be double your click-through rate all, because the click-through rate all is, have they clicked that see more button? Have they read it? And then have they taken action? And so we look for these little like insider metrics that we look for to see, oh, okay, that's actually connecting. And then things like conversion rates on a landing page are really important. That's our way of seeing, is somebody really hearing the words that we've written? Are they really understanding it? Are they connecting with it? And so we look at things like scroll rates or things like that to help us tell the story of how much we're connecting with them. So it's a fun little dance that we do, that we look for the indications, like a map, right? We look for landmarks and we see what's happening.
I love that, landmarks, as you're going through all the different funnel metrics. So
Yeah.
when you're doing this with a client, do you have, let me just ask you, I love stories. Do you have any stories of clients that have stood out to you that you navigated these landmarks with, that you could share?
Yeah. So one of my favorite examples is a brick and mortar retail shop that we were able to do our testing for. And such a beautiful, like family run, the kind of business you just want them to succeed, right? They just have such a heart, like their products are great, all of these things. And one of the things that they were looking towards is, how do we get online? How do we build more of a presence e-com online? And they had a really great position in their city based on location. So we know that if you're brick and mortar, location will play a big role. But when you go online, there's a bit of a difference that happens with, are we talking to an affluent crowd? Are we talking to a money conscious crowd? Are we taking those kinds of things that come into play? So one of the things we realized is they thought they were talking to a more affluent crowd, but that was because of their location in the city that they were in. And one of the things that we found was that we actually could reposition them online with an even stronger audience of this gift giving, because they were more of like a really specialized boutique, and they had all of these great things and could be utilized for new moms and babies and things like that. And so we were able to find this gift giving crowd online that was actually way stronger. And so that's part of the process of, had we thought, sometimes we can think, okay, if it works in brick and mortar, it's going to work online, but that's not necessarily the case. And so we actually were able to bring their opt-in rate from 2% to 16% with the testing, which is quite a huge lift in terms of e-com, that gave them a whole different lane of business that they hadn't thought of, which is really cool to see.
I think that's a fabulous story. And you said 2 to 16%. That was, yeah, that is, if anyone here is not in e-commerce, that just know that's a huge lift. That could make or break your business.
Yeah.
But no, I love that story too, because they were already doing well. And I think so often, I at least work with clients that they're already doing well, they've had success, but they want to try something new, right? So we're either launching a new product, or I'm helping them reposition messaging for a new audience. And I love that idea that they came to you because there was this kind of forest they didn't know yet. So they had to, when you're going into a new area, you have to figure out, okay, who knows the trails? Who knows how to navigate this landscape that is new to me, but it's not new to them? So when you're, maybe some of the folks that are listening to this who are in one of those tipping points where they're switching the way that they're going to market, or they're launching something new, or they're trying a new messaging, or going after a new target audience like this group, what data would you say actually matters? So when they're thinking about the new campaigns that they're creating, or thinking about creating for this new initiative, what should they actually be tracking?
So there's a few key elements that always need to be addressed. And so in organic, it's a little bit different than it is in paid testing. So we specialize in paid testing, but I'll give a few little tips here for the audience in terms of organic testing. If you're using organic, you want to test things like an offer, really big, bold offer, see if people click on it, see what your metrics do. Make sure you have a really good headline. There's if you ask any copywriter in history, they will tell you, I think it's David Ogilvy says, by the time you've written your headline, you've spent 80 cents of your advertising dollar. And that's the truth. So use things like your stories or a very bright colored image that will capture people's attention in their scroll that has a great headline. See if they click on it. Things like that we can test. We test headlines and thumbnails, stuff like that. So those are great ways that you can test to see, have I put the right message in front of people? Have I hit the right pain point? And if you go into the paid testing categories, one of the things that really you want to dial in is, are the right people seeing my ad? And this is actually a really big conversation right now because we're losing more and more of the audience segments. That I have a colleague in the marketing world, and we all should have retired in 2022 after COVID and just sat on a beach in Spain, because it's like it's slowly getting worse and worse with what we can do. But the truth is that we still can do so much in the paid audience space with the testing, because we're going to see, can we get to the right people? And once we've dialed that in, then tools like Advantage Plus and all of these algorithm boosters, they become huge because they're designed to amplify great creative. They're designed to amplify great messaging. They're designed to amplify great ads. But if you don't have your audience dialed in, you don't have the message, you don't know what problem you're solving, and you don't know what imagery they need to see to connect, then you're just going to throw money at something they can't optimize because it's not great. And that's where, that competition in the space becomes really key, is that you have to be great in order to compete and have Advantage Plus optimized for you. So those are the key pieces: audience, problem, headline, and the offer, and then the imagery. If you can make sure those are dialed in and you can test all of those, you really do have the foundation for success.
I love this. So everyone listening and watching, I hope you are filling out your sticky notes, because this is gold she's giving. So that, combined with the data points that you mentioned earlier, right? Those landmarks that can help you get to the root of the actual problem. Like, why are people not engaging with this? This is the foundation, right? Because like you were saying, I love how you highlight too that there are tools and there are platforms and there's AI and there's technology that can help accelerate success, but you have to first figure out the signals that tell you, am I on the right track? Do I have the right message? Are we talking to the right people, or are we talking to people who just are thinking about something entirely different?
Yeah. And we see it happen all the time. Even just before this call, I was coaching and we were talking about, okay, the lead generator is actually leading towards a cost-effective mindset. But then the price point of the upsell is actually a very affluent pricing. It's not designed for, so they're two separate people.
Yeah.
So then there's this massive disconnect. The ad is working phenomenally well, but then the sales page is not working and the webinar is not working. And it's because the conversation changes to a different audience. And so that's where these kinds of tweaks and just a full funnel overview of, am I talking to the same person at the beginning that I'm trying to get into my product or service or add to cart, things like that? Is the messaging the same? Because we fall into this trap of, we work on pieces at a time. And then we forget this full funnel relevance of, oh, wait, that's the same person. We're trying to help the same person. And it's a very common trap to fall into. And full disclosure, I've done it my own self. So
No, it is true, because you work on it piecemeal. And for the big brands that we've both worked for, sometimes it's even different teams that are working on these different parts of the funnel. So at some point, having someone like you or someone internally to look at, okay, is this actually making sense? And then I've heard too from people saying, oh, we asked our customer, why did they not take the next step? I'm like, sometimes they can't even articulate it themselves because it's a subconscious decision where they're like, okay, I opted in for this. That was really interesting. I'm not so sure why I'm not interested in this step. They may not even be able to articulate it. So it takes you to see, okay, where are we missing this? Like, why is this not in alignment?
And that piece of the puzzle, like I go into things like StoryBrand, we have the 3 layers of problem. I actually, one of the ones that I really resonate with and have tested the living daylights out of is Eugene Schwartz's what they will tell you, what they won't tell you, and what they can't tell you.
Yeah.
And so when you start to do a full funnel relevance test, that what they can't tell you is what you're referring to. They might not even be able to articulate it, but as the guide in somebody's story, we want to dig a little bit deeper and find that, because that's where connection really happens. That's when they start to really trust you as the guide in their story. And even something as simple as like one of the companies that we have done testing for is a gum company, and it's nobody wants bad breath on their first date. Right. And that's probably something they're not going to say to us. They're going to say, I want whiter teeth, or I want fresh breath. But it's like, hey, listen, we know that when Mr. Right comes, like, you want your breath to be. So it's those pieces of, girlfriend, you've waited way too long for him. We're not messing this up with bad breath. Those pieces of just talking to them at a level of, yeah, I don't want bad breath. So that becomes a really key point of the puzzle when you're doing a full funnel relevance test, is have we hit those marks? Do they know that they can trust us? And that's part of the testing process.
I love that. So let me ask, as part of this full funnel relevance testing that you do, does it address one of the common questions I hear from a lot of people, which is, Mary, I know you talk about storytelling and emotional benefit versus functional benefit, but does that really matter? And where does it matter? So when you're looking at the full funnel, is the testing that you're doing helping people understand when a functional message is actually helpful? Or are you seeing that actually no matter where we are in the funnel, in the journey, emotional wins out or functional wins out? What have you seen from your testing? What is the testing helping you identify?
That's a really great question, Mary. One of the things that I will always say is that it goes back to your audience, right? If your audience is more analytical, they're going to need you to give a little bit more of the details of how. Whereas some audiences aren't necessarily, if I'm coming to you for debt counseling, I'm going to need you to have a financial background. I'm going to be looking for that piece of the puzzle, right? So you're going to need to, as the guide in my story, you're going to need to say, hey, listen, I know how it feels to live in a world of debt and overwhelm, and that constant, a good friend of ours calls it financial anxiety, and I love that term. And but here's why I can be the guide in your story, and here's how we're going to get you to the transformation. Whereas there's some funnels and some products and services that they actually just need to know that you will see and hear them. And they're validating that more emotional piece of the puzzle. And that's actually what they need to see in order to take action. But again, that's also a personality type, right? So it really depends. I'll always say this, everything goes back to your audience. It goes back to knowing your audience inside, outside, backwards, forwards. And if you're selling to engineers, you're going to have a little bit of explanation. And I've missed the mark on this one. That's why I know it is that when you're speaking to the right audience, you'll know exactly what they'll need you to talk about in order to have them see you as the guide.
So when you're working with people, like how, just to set people's expectations that are listening to this, how long does this take? You know what I mean? Like when people are saying, okay, I've got the pieces built, we've been in business for a while, we have our initial messaging that we think is going to be right, but how long does it take to actually start to see some of these signals you've talked about?
Yeah, so we actually have curated a system over the last 3 years that we go in and we test really quickly. It's called sprint testing. And we take different key elements. We've curated the process. Like I learned the base model from, like I was saying, like from an incredible company that taught me that. And I saw these pieces of that kept coming in for our clients. But for us, what we do is we do what we call a 4-week sprint. And we get all of this kind of in a report that's, here's the foundation. And then we work with the team to say, okay, here's how you're going to keep testing from here on out. Because even the biggest companies in the world, Amazon's, the Netflixes of the world, if you look at it, they're testing all the time, right? My Netflix looks different than your Netflix, Mary, because they're sprint testing whether or not that new image of the Happy Gilmore 2 movie resonates, or there's another one, right? That's what a sprint test is. It's putting in to see if there's indication data. And so our process takes about 4 weeks to complete. And then we work with the teams to teach them how to take that foundational knowledge forward and then continue to grow and optimize with it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that though, because you think about, okay, 4 weeks to know, are we going to invest in something that's going to fly or not, right? Or back to the drawing board. I think that's incredible. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fun to see something come to life. But on the flip side of it, if there's not a market there, it's only 4 weeks and a few $1,000s to invest and get that feedback. Because I remember my heart sank when I was working with a company, and the gal who was leading the team, she said a good friend of mine just spent his whole life savings thrown based on what this business strategist told him, and it just flopped.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like it might have been an audience thing. It might have been like, it just might have been the messaging might have been off. So it just, those kinds of things hurt my heart. And I just think the pieces of the puzzle that can be, if we know the foundation and you have the right team building your test laboratory based on a lot of experience, then, because even the best marketers, their guts need a little bit of validation. This just helps give that and move forward.
Yeah, no, totally. No business has unlimited resources to just pour into
No.
ideas that we don't have any proof that it was teed up for success. I remember giving a workshop one day where it was to a house of brands company. One team raised their hand. They said, Mary, I like this idea of looking for insights, but we're the smallest brand in the portfolio. We have a really small research budget. It's only $500 million a year. And I was like, everything's relative.
And funny enough, like we just got told yesterday, very in low apparent terms of, can you actually go into the innovation departments because they need you really bad right now? Yeah, so it's fun. Like I love anytime we can take big learnings from companies that do great work and they have grown to a large size, take those and give them to the small business owner or the person with a big dream and a big vision and say, okay, there's probably an idea here. However, we need you to come back to this piece to get the first capital in kind of thing.
Definitely. No,
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, your expertise with us, Julie. I hope everyone has their very full sticky notes from this conversation. I know I definitely have started writing stuff down that even I'm going to start applying. Do you have any final thoughts for anyone listening or watching that has the alarm bells going off in their head, thinking about how they can apply this?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to remember is that on the other side of every interaction is a human being, right? And it's easy to get caught in the numbers and go, oh, this isn't working, or hey, I've only had this many impressions, or things like that. But the truth is that there's that many people that you've been in front of, and if they were sitting across the kitchen table from you, what would they be telling you? How could you connect with them? What would they need you to be saying? And that's what marketing is, right? That's marketing is showing up and solving a problem for somebody that really could change their life. And whether it's gum or whether it's the biggest investment they'll ever make, it is it's important to remember you're the guide in their story and that they're a real human being. So I just always love to remember that, especially in this data-driven space that we're in. I just think of everybody across the kitchen table. So
I think that's such a great reminder, right? We look at the conversion rates, we look at the metrics, right? The data that you've highlighted for us, but at the end of the day, those numbers are humans. Amazing. Now, I know you also mentioned that there is a testing cheat sheet that you've created. Would you mind telling everyone how they can get their hands on that?
yes, absolutely. So in the show notes, there is my Instagram handle. And if you just simply DM me the word test, I will send you over our cheat sheet. And it has a little bit more than what I touched on in terms of the organic tests and a few of the preliminary paid tests that you can do. And I'd love to give that away for free because it's just a really great insight into why we need to know these things in order to really connect with people and come from a place of service when we are in our sales process.
Amazing. So connect with Julie Wieler on Instagram. We're going to have her handle down here in the show notes, wherever you're watching or joining us from, and definitely get your hands on that cheat sheet. Amazing. Thank you, Julie, for being such an amazing guest here on the Sticky Note Marketing Show.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Thank you for hosting a show that always has so much value. And I've been a fan for a long time. Super excited to be a guest and super honored.
Absolutely. And for those of you guys watching and listening, thank you for being here. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a friend, like, comment, leave us a review. That all helps us reach more people, more businesses. And if you are interested in connecting with Julie, check out all her links and information in the show notes here. And I will see you on the next episode of the Sticky Note Marketing Show.